Brianna, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. You're all the way from Colorado. Thank you for joining us. And it was an honor and privilege to speak to you last week about you're in the social work. I know you have some businesses. You have a website as well, and it's flourishing. And can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, your line of work, and a little about your nonprofit organization that you have, because it may be able to help the people here in the New York City area.
For sure. So I also kind of going back to Kaylana's testimony, I had mental health issues. I had depression, PTSD, and anxiety for 11 years. So I kind of don't think PTSD leaves or the anxiety has fully left, but it's something God has spoken to me about delivering me from. I know that I am fully delivered from depression now. And I was in elementary school when it started. So I was like around age 11 all the way up until my sophomore year in college is when I had it. And so I felt that there was a lack of resources in the school system. And I really didn't have the resources I needed at home either for like emotional well-being, or even having knowledge and wisdom about our emotions and how our mental health works. It just wasn't something that was a conversation in my household. So I really did not have that outlet. I created Breakthrough to Paradise, which is a nonprofit that works with outpatient facilities and schools to provide curriculum for classrooms and mentoring. And then we'll also be offering after school support groups for kids that have mental illnesses, and primarily focusing on kids of color and underprivileged kids who don't have the awareness, and their parents don't have the awareness or the knowledge to know how to seek the resources. So that's kind of what Breakthrough to Paradise is right now. We're starting our mentorship program next month. We'll start
Congratulations.
getting referrals. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll start getting the referrals from hospitals within a few weeks. So I'm excited for that to pour in. I have a few mentors that are lined up, and then I'm just going to keep training people. So if anybody's interested in being a mentor to some kids that have mental health illnesses or previous trauma, and you have a bachelor's degree in psychology or social services or even teaching, my website is www.btoparadise.com, and there's an application where mentors can fill out. All of the mentor sessions are virtual. It's just 1 hour a week, really working with kids, sitting down with them, helping them have someone in the community that understands that they have a mental illness or have trauma, and like they can work through it. And it's a non-clinical setting. There's no diagnosis that goes into it. It's really just like coaching, mentoring, one-on-one.
I'm gonna shift it here. How can churches play a vital role in their communities by improving mental well-being?
But that's a good question. So I feel like it is tricky because in church is evolving. It like can be in people's living room now. It is the building. Sometimes it's, for me, I don't go to the physical building, but I have a great community of people that I've known for 5+ years. I probably have over 15 people like that are all believers that I can go to who hold me accountable. So I think it really depends. I feel like, we are the body, we are
That's
the
right.
church. So I feel like for the physical building, incorporating different nonprofits that offer these services, like maybe replacing one Bible study out of the month with someone who's a mental health professional that can come in and lead workshops. Like I know there's people that would volunteer their services, especially to the church, just because there is a lot of church hurt and trauma that exists within the walls. And I feel like we're getting to a place where we understand we can't just pray it away, or we can't just, it's not something that's easily overcome. It's something that takes time, and it does take community. So I think that just as the church, as the body of Christ, it's more conversations. It's just being more intentional with the neighbor, like with your neighbor's struggles, like what they go through. Because I'm pretty convinced that most everyone suffers from anxiety to some degree, or their own forms of mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone struggles with it. Like even hearing Kay's story, I'm like, there's so many points in her story that I completely can feel in that moment, and it's
Yes.
not my story. As humans, we all collectively experience the same emotions. There's no one that hasn't felt sad. There's no one that hasn't felt joy. Like in the church, there should be no one that hasn't experienced deliverance on some way or some
Mm-hmm.
realm. I think that's another part of it that frustrates me sometimes with the body of Christ is that when our brothers and sisters have mental illnesses, why can't we deliver them from it? It shouldn't be something that like we just sit back and kind of let exist. I think that we're prayer warriors. We have strength. We have
That's
gifts.
right.
We can rely on the Lord's strength to deliver our brothers and sisters from this thing. It might take time. It's difficult to work with people that have mental illnesses. It's not easy, but it's very possible. So I think even you mentioned just like people being delivered from diseases. Like last year, God took me through a bunch of self-deliverance, just like shutting doors that have been open for way too long, and like coming out of everything that I knew was my identity that wasn't aligned with what He said. So I just think it's the aspect of community, respecting each other's journey, and like using our gifts, like doubling down in our gifts, and not just relying on one person that's the head of the church to like
Right.
bring us to live through.
Yeah, I do agree with you. There's different services that are out there despite the physical building of a church. There's different outlets, there's counselors, there's advocacy groups. You even have family members that you could talk to that if you're going through things. 'Cause I know when I'm going through some stuff, I talk to my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister. Sometimes I'm quite reticent about certain things because of what other people may say about me. They're gonna judge me. I can care less, but what they're gonna say. There's people that are just like me that want to say so much to them, but they're like, I don't feel comfortable telling them. They're not gonna understand. So what do you do with people that are like that? Feel like they have trust issues sharing certain things or confiding certain things with people about their mental illnesses. How would you direct them to maybe a service or another method that can probably help remedy their condition?
I think that I think that for one, silence kills, and I think that Satan wants us to hold on to the secrets and like the darkest parts because those are open doors and areas he has access to that
Right.
our spiritual leaders don't know about because we are like keeping that secret with him, and it can be intimidating, and we can feel shame or guilt or insecure when approaching people. But I think that if we're looking at it from the perspective of like our most healed version, like who would that person trust to go to despite like church hurt or pain or the walls that we have up with people? Sometimes it's just a leap of faith. Like it's seeking God in counsel and asking him. You can pray, fast, ask God who you should open up to. Who, like I do that with when I went through my counselors. I've had like 8 counselors and like 3 good ones. And every time I ask God, like, I don't care if people know that I went to a counselor and was like, nah, this ain't it for me. Because I think that's completely fine.
Right.
I'm not going to go on one date with a man and be like, oh yeah, you're the one. No, it's going to take time. I'm going to have things that I have red flags. I have my deal breakers. Bring those into counseling sessions or anyone that you're wanting to open up with. I think you bring God into the mix of deciding who and go into it from like a less vulnerable approach where it's not you just dumping the story on the person, but you're assessing to see if that's a safe person. You're assessing to see how they would respond. And you might have to do that with multiple people until you do find your person. But I think it's the biggest part is protecting when you feel that shame and that vulnerability and like you already don't want to trust someone, you have to protect your story.
Absolutely.
Because if you go to that person and you open up and you're just like, dang, I knew I was right. And it's not that, it may not have been that you shouldn't trust people, but it may have been that, oh, I didn't take enough time to sit with this, to bring God into the mix, to assess the person before I opened up and gave them all of these valuable things that are part of my story that other people don't know.
The pandemic took place, there was a 25% increase on anxieties and depression. What do you think was the cause of that? When people talk about the pandemic, the first thing they want to kind of match it up to is mental illness. It's really not. I can go through things in the pandemic. It don't necessarily have to be mental illness. It could just be mental health. Like,
Yeah.
I'm depressed because the pandemic is happening, or there's changes in the environment, or even on the news you see the media talking about the pandemic. I went through a lot of panic. Does that mean that I have mental illness? Like what
Right.
is your take on that? Because because it was brought to my attention that just because a person is battling with certain things during the pandemic doesn't necessarily mean they're diagnosed with mental illness. Can you tell me a little bit of the difference between mental health versus mental illness?
I think um, from like a perspective of just having kind of been delivered, luckily before the pandemic happened, I think that my mental health thrived the most during the pandemic, as crazy as that sounds.
Oh wow.
Um, I think that people also experience the opposite. And I say that because I feel like there were those who have been doing this work that a lot of people are doing now within themselves years before the pandemic. So when it happened, they were able to kind of see like where their hard work paid off mentally. And then I think there were those that outside of circumstances that you can't control, like death is going to cause depression and grief and anxiety. So like that's something that, if without the pandemic, death still has its way and you still have to kind of grieve through it and go through that process. The pandemic, outside of death, the other mental illnesses that people are experiencing is not, it's pretty much, I feel like it was spiritually a way for God to shine light on our broken areas that like we've been outworking or ignoring or numbing, not fully being aware of. We might have noticed them to a certain degree, but being shut down in a house, not being able to socialize, not being able to go to church, not being able to go to different things that we essentially idolize or replace with other things that can distract us from really needing to dig deep and heal. I think that that's what people are starting to see now. Like the anxiety and the depression is coming to surface because the world opened back up, but those emotions you can't undo. Like you can't make yourself unaware to those emotions once they've already been unlocked. So I feel like it feels more intense now because life went back. We kind of were thinking, oh, once life comes back, it'll be easier. There'll be less stress. Like we'll be able to get back to our regular norms, but there's no normal like after going through that pandemic. Like we're all shifting into a new phase of this is our new norm. Now we have to take this anxiety to God. We can't hide it, or sometimes we weren't even hiding it, but we didn't know that the trauma was there. We didn't know about the mental illnesses or the doors that were open or just the depth of everything that we're having to really dig down and heal. A lot of times we weren't even aware of it, and I feel like the pandemic kind of opened that up and exposed that so God can be more intimate with people and
Yes.
He can show them like that He can deliver them from these things. Like I lived my whole life with anxiety, and this year I really heard God recently like, you're not going to have anxiety forever. I had just accepted it. I never even challenged the thought of life without anxiety because I thought it was just normal. But that's God is breaking the norms, and He's gotten us to a humbled place where we had nothing in this world that we could rely on. We barely have toilet paper. Like He got us to the most humble place and still is choosing to meet us and deliver us and strengthen our gifts and give us platforms and just really bring everything into motion. So I think that the people that have been on this mental health journey, you'll start to see blueprints of how people can get delivered, and it's going to happen a lot quicker. I don't think it will take as long as it has in the past.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know with my experience with through the pandemic, it brought out it took my creativity to a whole new level. You know, I spent countless hours reading the Word. I was more intimate with God than ever before, And the way God moved in my life, I said I would love to relive those years, those months during the pandemic, because I was just in a place of solitude. It was just like me and God, and the supernatural encounter of God and his holy presence. I felt him even more. It's like I didn't have to go to a physical building. I was in my house praising and worshiping God, like how David did, how he danced and worshiped. I was beating on the floor and singing and whatever. Did I miss the physical building? Yeah, but it's nothing but like intimacy with God. And
Right.
I started several businesses. That was my way of dealing with my mental health, my emotional well-being, my mental well-being. I came up with a t-shirt logo. Well, Jesus gave me the idea. It was called Positive for Jesus Christ, Negative for COVID. And, because I took the test, I was like, hold up, I can come up with a t-shirt idea. So I started making t-shirts.
I like that.
I appreciate it, trademarked it, everything. So it was very lucrative profession, the t-shirt business. I did t-shirts. I also was working on some content for, movies and screenplays, and God just took me to another level. So I used that opportunity to get close to God, to sharpen up my gifts, and to create platforms that gives him glory. I was never, and that was my remedy for my mental health. Whatever I was going through panic attack, even being on the train. God has delivered me from that. But thank you so much for sharing, with us your expertise, your knowledge, how God, Jesus Christ, can deliver people from mental illness. Can you also tell us about your website? Just tell us how we can find it.
The business is called Breakthrough to Paradise, and the website is just that shortened. So it's www.btoparadise.com. On there, you'll kind of be able to follow our journey. It's definitely a startup, but we will be offering the mentoring services. If you know any mentees, adolescents that have dealt with mental illnesses, we have a mentee application as well. And we'll be taking those in starting mid-March of 2023, just for anybody that might be listening to this in the future. So yeah, we'll be taking those in. You can kind of see like a previous event that we have is on there, and we'll just kind of keep updating it as we partner with programs. And I'll definitely add this to it as well, along with some other podcasts I've been on. And that reminds me that I do have the goal of making a resource page, so definitely come back to the website, because I want to provide free resources, because I think that's another problem is we have the resources, it's just people don't know where they're at or even what to look for. So that's something else that I will be adding to the site.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being a guest on the Mind Yours podcast. Hopefully we can definitely build from here and invite you on some more podcasts that I plan on doing in the nearby future. Thank you for your time, and look forward to speaking with you and working with you again.
Thank you so much, Corey. What you're doing is amazing.
Thank you, Briana. You take care. God bless you. Hey, Briana, you want to close out in prayer? Would you like to close out in prayer?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to close out in prayer?
Okay. Heavenly Father, I thank you for just the opportunity, the platform that you're creating through Coro. I thank you for his obedience. I thank you for every person that would listen to this. Anything that piques their heart or makes them feel closer to you in the moment, I pray that would continue to draw them near to you. Yes, I pray that every door that's not supposed to be open would shut in their lives, on all of our lives. I pray for the armor of God to be over us, and that's the helmet of salvation, crown of glory, you anointing our head with your holy oil, the breastplate of righteousness, the sword of the Spirit, the shield of faith, the belt of truth, and the shoes of peace. I pray that we would continue to walk in that. I pray that we would take down and pull down every stronghold of negative thoughts or suicidal thoughts or feelings of depression or unworthiness. I pray that you would begin to make those things awareness in your children so they couldn't lie dormant any longer. I thank you that we step on the serpent's head and we have the power to do so over and over again. Anyone that's feeling weak or feeling invaluable in this world, I pray that you would just send them strength. Breathe over their life, breathe over their mind, plead the blood of Jesus over their homes, their finances, their minds, anything that's stressing them out, Lord, I just pray for deliverance in those areas and freedom
Yes,
and
Lord.
grace and weights to be lifted off of the hearts of those that just feel weighed down with heavy emotions and mental illnesses or just poor mental health. I pray that you would give us coping skills, give us grounding techniques, give us different ways to overcome the barriers that we come up against while living in a stressful world. And I just thank you that at the end of the day or any time of the day, we can come to you, we can sit with you, we can rest on your words, like we're cuddled up in your lap, just like receiving your love and your grace being poured over us. So I thank you for that, Lord. And thank you for being faithful and a promise keeper, God, and a deliverer. And I pray all of this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen. I touch and agree. Thank you so much, Brianna. God bless you, and you have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.